All right. It says we live, so I'm going off of the the little red thing that says live. Anywho, good afternoon, Facebook fam and friends. It is another beautiful day that the Lord has made. Today is Sunday, September 7th, and it's been a pretty cool weekend. It was an unexpectedly long weekend for myself because Friday woke up no bueno. But I thank God for this day. Friday was rough though. In time though, pain, discomfort subsided. It wasn't anything terrible that caused me to have to go to the ER or anything like that. But I am grateful that I listened to my body, even though it was kind of hard to focus on myself because there's so many wonderful things that must be accomplished in the workplace. But it's a blessing to be gainfully employed. It's a blessing to have a supportive team who understood and held it down. It is a blessing to get the rest that I needed, taking into account where I was, where my body was on Friday. But today's Sunday, friends, September 7th. I am thanking God for joy and peace that realistically does surpass a lot of understanding, but I'm grateful. Being a parent is an emotional roller coaster ride of all the things, but we are continuing to do the best we can with what we know and trusting God with the rest, and ever grateful for y'all's prayers and well wishes and all the type of support y'all see fit to provide. But yeah, just before I got on, it was my oldest this time around. We gonna keep trying though. At the end of the day, they know no matter what, they are always loved. Um, and it sometimes does make me feel some type of way. I'm gonna say that nicely. They be hurting my feelings, but I can't always let them know. Um, Anywho, they are happy, they are healthy, they are whole, and today we will be focusing on continuing through the second book of Samuel, chapters 11 through 15, as the Lord wills. And for folks who I've been meaning to check up on, we're gonna make it happen next week. For folks who has checked in, appreciate y'all. I'm grateful for y'all. And I'm just glad that each and every day we get to see new mercies, new day, new sunlight. We remember to say thank you, Lord, and seek first the kingdom and trust that his will and his way is best. So no matter what we're going through, that's always the best way to start and end your day. And as often as necessary, keep that praise in your heart, keep the praise in your tongue. You can't go wrong, no matter what things look like or feel like or seem like. The joy of the Lord is our strength. So let's jump right into it, y'all. For folks who have read chapter 11 of Second Samuel, y'all know this is quite a popular story that has been referenced for millennia. And it is when David's selfishness and lack of focus on God causes him to sin. This is the story of David and Bathsheba. And what a story is all I can say from what I read. But some notes that I took before I read some of the verses, not the whole chapter, is again, David's selfishness, lack of focus on God, caused him to sin. The lust of the flesh got the best of him because he knowingly slept with another man's wife, got her pregnant, and then ended up getting her husband killed on the front lines of battle. His name was Uriah. He was a warrior. He was away at battle, fighting for his king and his land and his God. And David was, again, not focused, looking at another man's wife and then deciding to use his power to have other folks bring her into his chambers on all different type of levels. We don't know if it was consensual or not. I just know during that time, different customs, different culture, we have definitely come a very long way regarding women's rights, regarding women not being seen as mere property and or something to preserve so that more children can come into this space to then preserve other folks' legacies and powers and all that good stuff. Um, Side note, I have been watching a show on HBO Max called it Gilded Age, and it's a really, really good show if you're good at paying attention to the many angles that it sheds light on. But that came to mind when I was just thinking about, man, I don't even know if Bathsheba signed up for any of it, but I do know that ultimately there were consequences had, and for those who've never read the story, I'll read a little bit. But yeah, man, David got somebody else husband killed because he was trying to hide his sin when he ended up getting Bathsheba pregnant. But I'll read a few verses. What we're going to do is start with verses 1 through 17, and then we're going to do a little jump to verses 25 through 27. So 2 Samuel chapter 11 for folks who like to follow along. Verses 1 through 17, started with 1, and it says, "It happened in the spring of the year, at the time when kings go out to battle, that David sent Joab and his servants with him and all Israel, and they destroyed the people of Ammon and besieged Rabbah. But David remained at Jerusalem. Then it happened one evening that David arose from his bed and walked on the roof of the king's house, and from the roof he saw a woman bathing, and the woman was very beautiful to behold. So David sent and inquired about the woman, and someone said, 'Is this not Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite?' Then David sent messengers and took her, and she came to him, and he lay with her, for she was cleansed from her impurity, and she returned to her house." For folks who are trying to figure all that out, she probably was recently on the other side of that time of the month for a woman who's healthy. We have menstrual cycles. But that, for whatever reason, was a poignant piece because it lends to what happens after he sends for her, lays with her. But she's on the other side, so he's not being unkempt according to other laws that you keep. You don't sleep with your wife during that time of the month. They're not even in the same room that time of the month, because if they do decide to be in the same room, then the man is considered unclean, and there's rituals that have to be done so that he can be unclean. And then the woman, once a month, she has her own rituals for X amount of days so that she can be deemed clean, so that the two can come together again. And y'all probably remember a lot of that if y'all been rocking with me since the beginning, with the laws in Leviticus and Numbers, some in Deuteronomy, the Mosaic laws. It was 600 plus, and that was a part of it. Just womanhood and how you navigate that, and being married and children being in the same household, separation due to that time of the month. Tangent over. But going back to verse 4, it noted they lay together. Well, he lay with her. She was cleansed of her impurity. Verse 5, "And the woman conceived. So she sent and told David and said, 'I am with child.' Then David sent Joab, saying, 'Send me Uriah the Hittite.' And Joab sent Uriah to David. When Uriah had come to him, David asked how Joab was doing, and how the people were doing, and how the war prospered. And David said to Uriah, 'Go down to your house and wash your feet.' So Uriah departed from the king's house, and the gift of food from the king followed him. But Uriah slept at the door of the king's house with all the servants of his lord, and did not go down to his house. So when they told David, saying, 'Uriah did not go down to his house,' David said to Uriah, 'Did you not come from a journey? Why did you not go down to your house?' And Uriah said to David, 'The ark and Israel and Judah are dwelling in tents, and my lord Joab and the servants of my lord are encamped in open fields. Shall I then go to my house to eat and drink and to lie with my wife? As you live and as your soul lives, I will not do this thing.'" So Uriah is true to his and loyal to his men and what's happening with the war being present. He doesn't feel that that's in his best interest, nor is it fair, because everyone else is in battle mode. So that's what he tells, which I feel is very honorable. That's what he tells his king. Verse 12 continues. Then David said to Uriah, Wait here today also, and tomorrow I will let you depart. So Uriah remained in Jerusalem that day and the next. Now when David called him, he ate and drank before him, and he made him drunk. And at evening he went out to lie on his bed with the servant of his Lord, but he did not go down to his house. In the morning it happened that David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it by the hand of Uriah. And he wrote in the letter, saying, set Uriah in the forefront of the hottest battle and retreat from him, that he may be struck down and die. So it was while Joab besieged the city that he assigned Uriah to a place where he knew there were valiant men. Then the men of the city came out and fought with Joab, and some of the people of the servants of David fell, and Uriah the Hittite died also. So that was verses 1 through 17 of chapter 11. Y'all see David scheming because he was selfish. He lost focus. He lay with another man's wife. When he realized she got her pregnant, he said, man, let me go ahead and call this man off the battlefield, get him to sleep with his wife. A couple days passed. Uriah would not do so because he was battle-minded and he just didn't feel that it was fair to what his fellow brethren were doing and how they were living and surviving to win the war. And when David saw that Uriah was an honorable man and he was not going to change his mind, David tried to get this man drunk, and it did not change what was in Uriah's heart of hearts. Despite his drunkenness, he would not go home and lie with his wife because it would have been a great cover-up with the timing of it all, and I know y'all know that. But long story short, and David decides to give that man his own kill letter and tell him to deliver it to Joab, who's the commander over the army. And Joab follows orders without question. So Uriah is no longer alive based on just the ongoing deceit to try to cover what was wrong. So now we're going to jump to verses 25 through 27. 25 of chapter 11. Then David said to the messenger, thus you shall say to Joab, do not let this thing displease you, for the sword devours one as well as another. That's a word, y'all. I don't know if y'all caught what David said. Long story short, David said, Joab, you can feel some type of way about what I did, but if you don't get in line, guess what? The sword can also devour you. That's what he said in a nice way. And then he almost said that, like, this is war, right? This is the cost of war. The sword devours one as well as another. Strengthen your attack against the city and overthrow it. So encourage him. Verse 26, when the wife of Uriah heard that Uriah, her husband, was dead, she mourned for her husband. And when her mourning was over, David sent and brought her to his house, and she became his wife and bore him a son. But the thing that David had done displeased the Lord. So that is how chapter 11 ends. Again, popular story going into chapter 12, which is also a popular story and lessons that many pastors and teachers have utilized to teach lessons. So going to chapter 12, what I wrote here was David's decisions opened him up to the same grave consequences. And I wrote, it is not worth it to be so full of yourself that you disrespect God. Can't get away with it. It's not worth it. So what I stated was, what a way for the prophet Nathan to show David himself in the mirror and tell him what is to come because of the sins he committed. But the beauty of God, y'all, he is still a merciful and good God. And he looked at David's heart posture. I looked at David's heart posture when I read 12. And what we see specifically in verses 16 through 25, which I read a little bit, is David accepts the consequences. And then he still worships and just keeps his heart toward God. He said, I'm going to live for you. I messed up. I understand these consequences. It hurts terribly, but I'm not going to forsake you because you haven't forsaken me. You still love me. Very powerful story for those who have never read 2 Samuel chapter 12 in its entirety. For the sake of time, we're going to read verses 16 through 25. So it reads, David therefore pleaded with God for the child, and David fasted and went in and lay all night on the ground. So the elders of his house arose and went to him to raise him up from the ground, but he would not, nor did he eat food with them. Then on the seventh day it came to pass that the child died. And the servants of David were afraid to tell him that the child was dead, for they said, indeed, while the child was alive, we spoke to him, and he would not heed our voice. How can we tell him that the child is dead? He may do some harm. When David saw that his servants were whispering, David perceived that the child was dead. Therefore David said to his servants, is the child dead? And they said, he is dead. So David arose from the ground, washed and anointed himself, and changed his clothes. And he went into the house of the Lord and worshipped. Then he went to his own house, and when he requested, they set food before him, and he ate. Then his servants said to him, what is this that you have done? You fasted and wept for the child while he was alive, but when the child died, you arose and ate food. And he said, while the child was alive, I fasted and wept. For I said, who can tell whether the Lord will be gracious to me that the child may live? But now he is dead. Why should I fast? Can I bring him back again? I shall go to him, but he should not return to me. Then David comforted Bathsheba, his wife, and went into her and lay with her. So she bore a son, and he called his name Solomon. Now the Lord loved him, and he sent word by the hand of Nathan the prophet. So he called his name Jedediah because of the Lord. All right, so that was stopping at 25. Want to make sure, yep, that was 25. Y'all, chapter 12 is a powerful chapter the whole way through. Before we got to what I read, Nathan comes to him and tells him a story. And then Nathan asks, hey, David, if this happened, what would you do? And he was like, I do this. Like, shame on the person who did this, that, and the third. And Nathan hit him with him. Nathan, the prophet Nathan, ended up hitting David with yeah, man, I'm talking about you. Because that's what you did when you got Uriah killed in the battlefield. And how you went about messing around with his wife. The person that you're mad, like you, and that's you. So it was like a crazy, unexpected slap in the face with truth. And then the prophet told him what thus said the Lord God about the child, because the child was born in sin, into sin, and the Lord didn't like that. So y'all know God is a holy God, and you understand that, the Davidic line is a part of the tribe of Judah, and there's so many things to come, right? Which is the beauty of and the pain of what occurs. But that first child whose name was never stated ends up dying. That was the consequence. God was like, he cannot continue. But when things are made right, David continues to be faithful. Now he's well within his grounds, right? Because Uriah is no longer part of the equation. He marries Uriah's wife, and then God blesses and honors the second time around, which is when Solomon is born. Moving on to chapter 13. It's another terrible story. Ain't no way around it. But it's another terrible story where one of David's sons, Amnon, sexually violates his half-sister. For you all know, David had multiple wives. So across those wives, children are not full blood with same mom and same dad. They all got the same dad, right? But Amnon has a lack of self-control. And then he justifies his impassionate love for his sister as his reason. And then he takes the advice of a friend and deceives his half-sister, and then rapes her. She's young. Her name is Tamar. She's a virgin. And he uses this deceit on his dad, King David, and many others in the household. And then this ends up causing a huge snowball effect of hurt, anger, and eventually Amnon's death, because Tamar's brother, which is Amnon's half-brother, he gets revenge. He ends up murdering his half-brother based on the hurt and harm he did to his half-sister. Well, it's Absalom's full sister. They got the same mom and dad. But in particular, it's just more anger and grief that occurs due to lack of self-control and lust. But 2 Samuel 13:23 through 33 is a transition of Absalom becoming afraid and running away, staying away from 3 years because he knew what he did. After he realized what he did. His whole "I love her and I want her to be mine" turned into I hate her. And oh my goodness, I already know her brothers and my dad, they about to be coming for my head. In regards to King David, he didn't seek to want to harm his son. But Absalom, his other son, was like, yeah, even after the 3 years, and I'll read a little bit of it. It didn't matter to Absalom, which is why Amnon ended up being killed. But Absalom killed Amnon, so that I'm not getting too far away. After this quote unquote restoration of him just thinking I'm about to do right by my sister. And then when he does it, now his daddy even more sad. My other son was murdered. Amnon's murdered by Absalom. Now Absalom has murdered and run away, and he grieving on both sides. So Absalom stays away for 3 years. His dad, King David, misses him terribly. And according to the way the word reads, David was kind of comforted that Amnon was killed because of what he did to Tamar. But he was sorely, sorely wanting his son Absalom to come back. So Absalom trusted after a while, and we get into just more interesting things occurring on Absalom's part. A lot of little stories within the story, but with chapter 13, it goes right back to another story of lack of self-control in the name of lust and justifying that harm that was done. There's an unfortunate consequence that occurs. Y'all, I'm on duty, and I was hoping I didn't get a duty call, but here we are. Give me one quick minute. Hey, this is Deanna. Hey, what's going on? See if I can pause real quick. I'm listening. Mm-hmm. Excuse me, Lillian. And let me look back and see. I'm gonna get you. You already know. I'm gonna get you, and I don't want to. All right. Sorry about that, friends. That's the joys of being on call, even at the associate director level. It wasn't urgent, just processing conversation, and Lord willing, we'll find some good resolve. All I care about is protocol is being managed. But we'll jump back in on where we were, and I want to say it was me doing a synopsis of chapter 13 before transitioning to chapter 14. But yeah, terrible story involving half-brother sisters. In short, sexual assault, murder, fear, folks running away, impacting a lot of lives and family, tightness. Absalom runs away because he like, oh, my daddy really gonna get me, right? 3 years he's gone, and then we jump to chapter 14. And in chapter 14 of 2 Samuel, Absalom is gotten from Geshur and asked to come back home because King David is sorely missing his son, and he decrees he can come back home. Tell him ain't no hurt, harm, danger gonna come to him. I want my son back home. For 2 years, though, David does not look his son in the face. He doesn't come near. They don't come near each other. They're not in the same spaces, even though he's back home. And then this sorely affects Absalom. So Absalom ends up taking a desperate measure to get some face time with his dad by burning his neighbor's barley field. And I'm going to pause there because we know that Absalom is not a child. But Absalom, no matter how, and I guess the story for me was like, no matter how old we get, we still desire quality time with our dads. We just do. And while some people would say like that was a little bit much, you're impacting somebody else's livelihood to get his attention. Burning down his neighbor's field, unfortunately, worked. Specifically in verses 24 through 33, friends, forgiveness was had between David and Absalom. It got his dad's attention. But no matter how old we get, whether we are male or female, it is very evident in a lot of these stories, the power of a present and loving dad. But I thought that was like interesting to see and note. But for 2 years, David was dealing with his own things, right? And not seeing your son face to face, even though you was told to come back home, I could see how confusing that would be for Absalom. And then that desperate measure, again, it pays off. But what I'm going to do is read verses 24 through 33 because it helps to give a better understanding, I'll say, as to why we end up where we are when we get into chapter 15. So this is 2 Samuel chapter 14, verses 24 through 33. And the king said, let him return to his own house, but do not let him see my face. So Absalom returned to his own house, but did not see the king's face. Now in all Israel, there was no one who was praised as much as Absalom for his good looks. From the sole of his feet to the crown of his hair, there was no blemish in him. So he was fine, y'all. And when he cut the hair of his head at the end of every year, he cut it because it was heavy on him. When he cut it, he weighed the hair of his head at 200 shekels, according to the king's standard. To Absalom were born 3 sons and 1 daughter, whose name was Tamar. She was a woman of beautiful appearance. And Absalom dwelt 2 full years in Jerusalem, but did not see the king's face. Therefore Absalom sent for Joab to send him to the king, but he would not come to him. And when he sent again, the second time he would not come. So he said to his servants, see, Joab's field is near mine, and he is barley there. Go and set it on fire. And Absalom's servant set the field on fire. Then Joab arose and came to Absalom's house and said to him, Why have your servant set my field on fire? And Absalom answered Joab, Look, I sent to you, saying, Come here, so that I may send you to the king to say, Why have I come from Geshur? It would be better for me to be there still. Now therefore, let me see the king's face. But if there is iniquity in me, let him execute me. So Absalom is desperate. He wants to see his dad's face to the point of saying, like, if y'all see some wrong in me, if I'm that detestable, kill me. That's a strong statement, scary statement, but he just wants to see his pops. Verse 33. So Joab went to the king and told him, and when he had called for Absalom, he came to the king and bowed himself on his face to the ground before the king. Then the king kissed Absalom. All right, so that's the specifics of what I did a quick recap over with 14 about what stood out. Now, wrapping up with 15, I just say, oh, Absalom. So you see reconciliation. You see a lot of things that people realistically deal with in today's world. Nothing new under the sun. The world definitely gets wickeder and wiser. History sometimes unfortunately repeats itself. But the first thing when I read verses 1 through 12, y'all, I'll just say, oh, Absalom. So selfish ambition is the sin, y'all. He decides to steal the hearts of the people by chilling up at the gate when they're coming in to address matters to their king regarding law, politics, any wrongs that's been done. And instead of him letting his daddy do his job, he is intercepting the people and giving his wisdom and his understanding of matters and sending them away. And what's happening over this course of time is that none of this is getting to the King David, and the people and their hearts and their respect is turning towards Absalom. So this little thing starts a coup. Ain't no other way around it. A coup starts. Absalom becomes impatient, and he apparently thinks that he is ready to be king and can do better than his dad. Where they do that at? Everywhere, apparently. It's many good movies and books we've read where it happens. The son has been forgiven. The son has been brought back into the fold. There should be peace. The son has his own area and the things that he's responsible for. And he like, nah, I'm ready to be king. So in verses 1 through 12, that's what came out. I was like, oh, Absalom. In 2 Samuel chapter 15, verses 13 through 37, David and his people end up having to run away. David is older in age. They have to run away because Absalom is like, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take this. And he has it in his heart and mind to whatever I got to do by any means necessary. That strikes so much fear in a lot of people's hearts because David now, when he becomes aware, it's a little too late because it's a lot of people, right? Split. There are some loyal to David and they follow David because David ends up having to flee up out of his kingdom because it's the people that's on Absalom's side that's ready to burn it down and kill the king, right? And if it's not for the right people to be whispering to get the word, it could have been bad. We know God is still in control, right? But it's some very real things impacting the people. But David and those loyal to him, they are running away out here in these streets, wandering from like cave to cave, hole to hole, house to house, if it's not too prominent of a house for Absalom's people to figure it out because they are hunting David and his folks. And you see loyalty on both sides. You see skepticism, you see strategy, you see hope for preservation, you see grief. You see it all. I think reading all of chapter 15 is absolutely worth it for folks who have never done so. But specifically verses 13 through 37, you see all of that. And David leaves his home to avoid death and defeat because of what his son Absalom has done. Sad reality, but again, it makes for good movies, it makes for good books, it makes for good plays, and that is why we watch them and read them to this day. But it's treasonous is all I can say. But yeah, David has to run up out of there, y'all. And all the way through into verse 37, you see some really good things put in place from David's end, to where one of his entrusted individuals, I think his name is, oh, let me make sure I get it right, Hushai, David's friend, ends up getting in good to become another confidant to Absalom. Absalom currently has a confidant during that time, and his name is Ahithophel. I don't know if I said it right or not, but Ahithophel has his own greed and desires and the way he thinks about things. And what I'm noticing is a lot of times we be thinking that kings have real power, but sometimes it's the people that's relaying information to them and the people they're relying on to be praying for them and giving them wisdom on like political matters. Especially if they're not confident in and of themselves, or they've grown up with high priests. I think of like watching Aladdin back in the day. I don't know if y'all remember Jafar, but if you paid attention, like the Sultan was a placeholder. He was a face. He smiled, he kissed babies, he shook hands. But the person who was really pulling the strings and impacting things, it was Jafar. And he didn't always have to use his magic to have his way, right? To impress upon the Sultan. And that's what I saw when I was reading in chapter 15 with Absalom. He would instinctively ask, hey, Ahithophel, what say you, right? You know, what you think? But when Hushai, David's friend, was told, don't stop following me, go back, pledge your loyalty. I mean, make it believable so nobody questions, right? And then I'm gonna send some other people with you. Y'all make it like you never left, like you always been for the new, you know, the right side, quote unquote. And that ends up working out in David's favor because as information is being told, they're finding regular people that are unassuming to kind of run and be the birdies, right? To let the message be known to David and his people that's protecting him what's to come. You know, so he knows where to hide, he knows where not to be, he knows what's happening, he knows what to do. But long story short, 15 is one of those chapters that is really good because you see, it's like reading again. It's like watching the play. It's like reading the story. But that's where we're going to stop for the sake of time. My apologies for like dipping out like that. I had a little feeling too. I said, watch, I get a call. But again, everything is good on the campus front. And Lord willing, there'll be a permanent resolution so that systems are not malfunctioning and inconveniencing people, because that's what it boiled down to when I heard my person out. But yeah, if y'all haven't read 12, 13, 14, 15, read it. It's real good. For folks who have been listening, thank y'all in advance for your prayers. Know that you're always welcome to join. Appreciate your comments. Appreciate correction. If I'm saying anything that is incorrect, please let it be known. Thank you for continuing to call me in love, because that's how we do it. Iron sharpen iron. But that's all I have for everyone on this wonderful Sunday. I hope that y'all are able to make it a great remainder of this new week to come. And Lord willing, next weekend, we'll be at it again to continue through the next chapters. Take care, y'all.